he promptly killed, chopped up, roasted, and ate, then slipped a piece of the body into his pocket for later. This time Pearce was not starving when he turned cannibal. It was said he was also carrying bread and either pork or cheese in his pocket. Pearce was hanged on 19 July 1824. The beloved Australian idea of building a supermax jail within a high-security prison had its first airing in Port Arthur, Tasmania. Here, south of almost everything in the known world, transportees who reoffended in Australia were sent to a severe industrial prison in a natural penitentiary that was linked to the mainland, which was itself an island, by an isthmus secured by soldiers, man-traps, and vicious, hungry guard dogs. Nevertheless, Irish convict Martin Cash escaped with 2 other men in December 1842, and the 3 desperadoes corporatised as the Cash & Co gang. Like so many future escapees, they turned to armed robbery. Cash became notorious in the colony as a bushranger. In England, he would have been called a highwayman, in the US, a stagecoach bandit, and eventually murdered a constable and was transported for life to Norfolk Island, about 1,400 kilometres east of New South Wales. He was released in 1854 and died in bed. Prison escapes, successful and otherwise, have been a feature of Australian history since Europeans first brought the idea of jails to the continent, and 2 modern Australian prison breaks are remembered all over the world. In July 1980, armed robber Gregory John Peter Smith rappelled down the front wall of Pentridge to begin a series of swashbuckling adventures that would eventually form the basis for his best-selling novel, Shantaram. In March 1999, armed robber John Killick was broken out of Silverwater Prison by his Russian girlfriend, Lucy Dudko, who hijacked a helicopter to airlift Killick from the yard. Smith was 28 years old when he escaped. Killick, incredibly, was 57. Although Killick and Smith had served time in the same jail, HMP Pentridge in Victoria, their sentences did not coincide, and they never met. But the 2 men had much in common, from their easy charm and humour to their talents for armed robbery, from their crazy bravery to their striking looks, and from their battles with addiction to their literary ambitions. Another Australian criminal, drug trafficker David McMillan, made history and headlines in August 1996 when he became the first Westerner to escape from Thailand's Klong Prem prison, the sardonically named Bangkok Hilton. McMillan's story had curious parallels with Smith's and even offered a farcical prototype for Killick's when, in January 1983, McMillan became involved in an unlikely plan for a helicopter escape from Pentridge, masterminded by a buttock-duelling bigamist and executed by a former soldier who was later to achieve fleeting fame as a kleptomaniac butler. The escapes of Smith and Killick are among the most sensational chapters in a much bigger and bloodier story of escapes, murders, betrayals, suicides, and frustrated revolution, whose modern beginnings can be traced to a professional criminal known to both Killick and Smith, William John O'Mealy, the last man flogged in an Australian prison. I know John Killick, and some of the other characters in this book, and I have spoken at length with David McMillan, but I do not know Greg Smith, who now goes by the name of Gregory David Roberts. Greg, and I'm going to call him Greg to avoid switching his surname halfway through the story, is a shape-shifting enigma. It is difficult to separate experience from invention in many of the stories he has told to journalists and crowds. William O'Mealy had an even more slippery relationship with the truth, as we shall see. And both men had more in common than they might care to recognise with comedy thug Mark Brandon Chopper Reed, who, in January 1978, tried to force the prison escape of his mate Jimmy Loughnan with the Buckley's chance scheme of kidnapping a judge. Killick is a different case. The tales he tells are largely verifiable. And in some ways, Killick's life story is the most spectacular. His 1999 helicopter escape wasn't the first time he had escaped from custody. It wasn't even the first time he had got out with the help of a much younger, gun-toting girlfriend. Amazingly, it wasn't even the first time that the helicopter pilot